Attentive versus Klaviyo, the Israel and Palestine of email marketing. In today's video, I'm going to discuss the differences between Attentive as a platform for SMS marketing and just using Klaviyo. I'm going to break down the differences in the software, the pricing, why I recommend going with one over the other, and essentially just talk about some of the structural differences between these two systems. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you like my stuff, subscribe to the channel, like it, check out my newsletter. Got a bunch of cool information that comes out pretty much 3 times a week on this channel and then 2 times a week on my newsletter. Super valuable, fun. I think I'm a pretty funny guy, but without wasting any more of your time, let's get into the video. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna speak to when it comes to Attentive versus Klaviyo is the pricing. I actually really don't like how Attentive prices their services, and you can actually take a look just on their website, but just straight off the bat, like Attentive tries to lock you in for minimum term contracts, making it, or rather forcing you into a commitment with them for a period of time, and quarterly spend limits. It's just a little less flexible than Klaviyo, where it's just pay per use. Also, you know, Klaviyo offers plans that are free and also is much more ideal for people who are smaller, or rather have smaller lists. So I highly recommend, if price is a consideration for you, moving to Klaviyo over Attentive. The other thing that I really like when analyzing, or rather comparing Klaviyo to Attentive, is that odds are you're going to be using Klaviyo for your email marketing, and you have sequences and flows that are triggered off of different actions. For example, let me show you this here. If I go into an account and I go into this one here, you're going to have, for example, flows that are triggered off of somebody adding an item to their cart, or, you know, adding an item to checkout. And those flows should, in theory, trigger a sequence of emails. For example, abandoned cart. This flow should be triggered off of somebody adding an item to their cart, right? Obviously, this is in draft right now, but you know, you want to trigger a series of emails that is essentially coming off the back of that action. And you also want to interlace SMS into this sequence here. And in Klaviyo, when I'm working in Klaviyo, I can simply drag the SMS function here and pop it in any portion of this flow. And what that does is it prevents me having to do this, right? Creating an abandoned cart in a separate platform. You see what I'm having to do here? Having to work in 2 different platforms and having to figure out what message comes out where, and it's confusing and it's hard to organize around that, right? If I have like a added to cart code, or an abandoned cart coming out here, and I'm like, oh, amazing, I've got this flow triggered, sick. And then I go into Attentive and I'm like, oh god, I also have a flow triggered here, which I don't fully know where that slips in. It gets really confusing, and I really hate that. So the price is one factor, of course, but also the functionality from just getting like easy oversight of how everything sits within the automations from email and SMS, and they should play with each other, forces, or rather makes Klaviyo a much better option just because the oversight that you get here. So pricing, the way that it's easy to access. By the way, this content is not sponsored by any platform. I want to mention that as well. The last thing I want to point to as well is that if you're trying to capture SMS subscription, Attentive makes it hard for you to capture it in another platform and then push it to Attentive. They want you to use their sign-up forms. And normally I wouldn't have a problem with that, except their sign-up forms from a design perspective and a tagging perspective are more limited than Klaviyo's. Now sure, if you're using a third-party pop-up form tool, which honestly you shouldn't, it's a waste of money, check out my other videos to learn more about that. But if you're using Attentive's pop-up forms, they're limited in terms of the design, the look and feel, the functionality that you can get there. Now, if you want to say, hey, capture SMS subscription in Klaviyo, and then use Attentive as your SMS platform, Attentive deliberately throttles the passing of the data between these 2 platforms, meaning it takes about 24 hours at times for somebody who subscribes to SMS within Klaviyo to get passed to Attentive, meaning there are key action points that you're probably missing. For example, if somebody, adds an item to their cart and they've subscribed to SMS within 24 hours, they might not get any SMS messages because in that 24-hour window, they haven't triggered any of the flows that you've set up in Attentive. You see what's happening there? It's causing a bit of a breakdown. So within Klaviyo, you're better off honestly just using this platform, because Attentive makes it so that it's difficult to get other SMS subscriptions into their platform, thus forcing you to use their sign-up forms, which aren't nearly as good. So those are the 3 major reasons. Honestly, I think it comes down to price comes down to really just kind of how these two businesses do business. I'm not a fan of how Attentive locks people into contracts. It makes it hard to get out of. Not very friendly, not good practice from my perspective, from a business perspective. Also getting oversight on the automations, right? Like you have an email marketing flow and then you have an SMS flow, and you want to make sure that they're actually aligned and talking to each other, and having to jump through two different platforms, it's a pain in the ass, okay? It's not easy. And then finally, the sign up form functionality, okay? So if you want to capture SMS and you want to pass it into Attentive, odds are you're going to have to do that using Attentive's forms, which are not nearly as good. Highly recommend you just use Klaviyo. Once again, this video is not endorsed by them. This isn't sponsored content. It's just my experience running an email and SMS marketing agency. And if you want a hand with your email and SMS marketing, comment down below, shoot me a message, subscribe to the newsletter. Anything you need, I'm there for you when it comes to email and SMS. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. 3 videos every single week, and check out my newsletter as well. Thank you.